Okay, if you bring your attention back to the room, we'll continue. Bob Childers has some ideas he wants to share with us. Okay. This one. Okay, Bob.
I hope everyone this week has seen the world as blessed, and the week before is blessed, and the week before that is blessed, and I hope you will do so this next week as well. Why do I say something like that? Well, because the Course says until we do that, we're not healed. Now you might think, well, I don't have to heal the world, do I? And the Course in Miracles teaches absolutely not. It can't be healed. Don't bother. You have to let the Holy Spirit or God heal your mind. Uh, Unfortunately, in a sense, this teaching places the responsibility for the healing of your mind on you, but you are not without help. It's something you have to want. If you don't want it, no problem. You don't get it, you know. Uh, but it is available. And one way to approach that understanding is through the belief in miracles. You know, I've been aware of the Course of Miracles for probably 30 years or so. And before that, I was looking around for one thing or another uh, to improve the state of my life because it very much needed improvement. And I just wasn't that happy. There were problems of one sort or another. And there are a lot of good teachings in the world, and they're useful and it helped me somewhat. But then I came across A Course in Miracles, and it was a little different. For one thing, the Course of Miracles speaks with an authoritative tone of voice without involving any coercion. A lot of people speak authoritatively, and they let you know what's going to happen if you don't listen to them, and follow up with a threat of some sort. And of course, there's no threat for anything. There is no coercion involved in it. It just simply elaborates the consequences that are going to occur if you do this, that, or the other. You know, it's just like if you're building a house. Not that I know that anything particular about construction, but I know there are consequences. You can't just go out with a hammer and put nails any old place you want. You got to connect these two boards together. I don't feel like connecting those. I think I'll connect these. Well, there'll be consequences. You know, if you don't put the nails in all the right places, the house is liable to fall over when you're through. So there are just consequences. And the Course in Miracles is really good about telling you. I say good, you might think it's unfortunate actually, because it lets you know the consequences start with your mind and how you're thinking. But no matter, it lets you know where they start from, and it lists your primary enemy. You can say this in more than one way, but sometimes you could say it's your ego. That would be appropriate. But I would like to say it instead, your primary enemy, because a lot of people will agree with this. After all, is fear and guilt. And you say, okay, I know it's not great to be guilty. It's not certainly not great to be fearful. Uh, why are you bothering to tell me that again? Because the Course says all of this comes from all of your, I mean, I guess I should put a your, mine, yours, ours, all your fear and guilt come from you. That's not such a common belief. Most people would say, no, my fear comes from whatever it is that's frightening me. The boogeyman, or the imminent disaster that's threatening. Oh, here comes another hurricane. It's right coming right at my little community. And the course says that fear is a decision you make. It is not something that just is dumped on you. See, we think it is because we have this within our bodies. We have a reaction to being startled. You know, a big loud sound right behind us when we think there's nobody else in the house. Oh, you know, you have a reaction of startling. You don't really know at that point whether to be afraid or not, because it just might be your sister wake, you know, in the house and you didn't think she was there, or somebody else. But that's not always the case. Maybe it's someone threatening. So there's being startled there.
Hard.
Go right ahead. So fear and guilt are the course suggests that fear and guilt are your decisions. You decide that you're going to be fearful, or you decide that you're not going to be. This is a big step, it seems to me. It puts it under your control. It is not that if you're fearful, you should feel guilty about being fearful. It's just that fear is something you choose. And none of us really enjoy being fearful, except in small amounts in horror movies or something. But we don't want to be really fearful. We don't want behind the fear. I guess we actually enjoy fear, come to think about it, as long as there's not a big consequence coming behind it. In other words, that's why you see so much of it in movies. People go to movies that have a lot of horror or even adventure in it, in order to raise their adrenaline up a little bit, you know. But they don't really want to be harmed. You see. No matter, I take the attitude that if I am fearful, I have chosen fear. So I'm going to be saying to myself, I'm afraid of the economy. Let's just pick the economy, for example. I'm afraid the economy is collapsing or going down or having a problem. And then I'm going to say, I choose to be afraid of it. I'm now choosing to fear the economy. I'm continuing to choose to fear the economy. I'm going to choose to fear the economy again and again and again. And then I'm going to pause and say, well, do I really like that choice? No. Well, then choose again. It is your choice. You're just not used to thinking of it that way. All your thoughts come into your mind as a result of your choice. They don't just, although the choice might not be conscious. I don't mean to say that. In fact, a lot of our choices are not conscious. The Course says you're choosing continuously. It never stops, but you're not always aware of it. A decision just means you want this thought in your mind instead of some other thought. And so a lot of that choice is not conscious. Now, the fear comes from the guilt. This is the Course seems to think that if you didn't feel you were guilty about something, you wouldn't be attracted to fear. You wouldn't tend to experience it. And so by guilt, you need to understand that the Course says that guilt is basically a belief that you're not good enough. In one way or many ways, you're not really acceptable to other people or to yourself or to God. Any such thing. And now more commonly, people would simply say, well, you sinned. But a sin is something that is normally offending God. And the Course teaches that God's not offended by what we do at all. So, but that doesn't keep you from thinking things like this. In other words, just because you might say, I don't believe in sin, doesn't mean you don't believe these things here. And so this is the more, this is what's really going on here. You have some kind of thought of that sort. Well, not acceptable to God or to your friends. It doesn't matter to who. The point is, if you don't feel you're good enough, well, that's a source. That's means you're. That's what the Course means by guilt. You have a bad feeling about yourself, or a bad belief. You don't. Most of us don't go around probably feeling bad about ourselves all the time. Sometimes we feel great, but the belief is there. There's a belief that, well, I'm not good enough, and the Course says that you are perfect. It's not. And so perfect doesn't have to be. It's not something that you get a little bit more of and then a little bit more of. It's just 100% thing right away. And so all of this needs to be replaced by the sense of you are a perfect being. You just can't do it wrong. You say, well, I can do lots of things wrong. I do them all the time. You're the one calling them wrong. I'm not saying that what you do will work out. You know, you build a house and it collapses. You say, well, I didn't do that very well. No, it just didn't work out. You don't have to attack yourself. See, guilt is essentially an attack on yourself. There is no need to ever feel, ever, that you have done anything wrong or bad. I don't know what does it take to get that feeling into your mind. I don't know, you know. God damn it. We have someone that's feeling the pain in our midst, and
only right.
Several of us.
well, well, one is more acutely feeling than the other, and we all wish there was something we could do to be helpful. And fortunately, she has a wonderful daughter who is pretty knowledgeable about being helpful and is doing whatever she can there. Pain is such a difficult thing to deal with, mainly because, and the reason is it draws all our attention. You would think that if only your elbow hurt, and your elbow's 1/100th of your whole body, let's say, that 1/100th of your feeling would be pain, and the other 99/100ths would be okay. But it doesn't work that way. The elbow hurts, you are in pain, you know. And if the pain's enough, it occupies all of our attention. The Course has a very unusual view, I think, of pain and pleasure, especially of pleasure, but well, somewhat of pain. And so it backs off and takes the longest view on it that it can, and it says, "Why do you have pain and pleasure?" And it says pain and pleasure are not, in the basic sense, they're not different. So, well, I like one, I don't like the other. It says they're still not different, because if you to see if something's different, you need to look at its purpose. If two things have the same purpose, and they, in spite of the fact they feel different, but if they have the same purpose in a certain sense, they're the same. And it says pleasure and pain both have the same purpose. They were made artificial, well, sort of artificially, in the sense that God does not feel pain or pleasure. Okay? And God is the source of reality. That which is not of God is not real. You see, so pain and pleasure were made artificially. They were not just built into reality as a part of the mind of God. He knows nothing about pain and pleasure. He only knows what's real and true and loving. So here we are, and we know, we come across these things all the time. So he said, well, why was it in the original scheme of things? Why? Because the Course says we were created as spirit We were created in the mind of God. We were not created when you're born, for example. That's the body was made when you're born. And the body is finite, and after a while it passes away. But spirit is perfect, it's eternal, and it doesn't pass any place. It just is. But it can be associated with your body, and for many people, they will simply believe I am a body. And Jesus tells us in the Course in Miracles that no, you're not a body. Thank God I'm not a body. I'm so glad. I don't mind having one. It's okay to have a body. Well, if you're going to be here, you got to have one to get from one place to the other. But to think that I'm something beyond that is really a wonderful thing. And it simply says God created you like himself, but gave you a free will that allowed you to go elsewhere if you wish. And so we've chosen to have this experience. I'm sure many of you heard the term that you're not a physical being searching for a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a physical experience. A very useful little term. I first heard that in Unity. Very useful little phrase. And that of course is saying the same thing, is that your reality is beyond the body. And so that brings us to the idea, well, how am I to view the body then? Since it's not my reality, should I just ignore it, deny that I even got one, fast on, whenever I can? And how about laying on a bed of nails, or whatever? And the Course says, do not deny. Of course, the Course in Miracles is sort of wise in spite of its hard line on truth in reality, because it has a very hard line on that, in the sense that it says, if it's not real, don't fool with it. But it knows we're going to be fooling with it. We're engaged in fooling with things that are not true. So he says, you don't have to deny the body, because that's too hard. It doesn't, that's what he's really saying, is that it's just too hard to do that. And so therefore it doesn't work. We're taught from the Course that the Holy Spirit only wants you to teach you lessons that are learned, that you can learn. If you can't learn it, hey, don't teach it that way. Teach it some other way. And so the idea of the body is that it is a learning device. It is something through which we can learn all kinds of lessons that are valuable for us. And the lessons, seems like Stephen read something about that we had to learn it here. I don't remember what it was. Yeah. Well, at any rate, I will just ad lib just a bit on that. I don't remember the exact quote now, but I think we actually have heard it already, is that we have to learn it here. What do we have to learn here? That you are responsible for your fear and your guilt, and therefore you must be the first line of defense, you might say, that allows them to be removed. You don't have to remove them. The Holy Spirit can do that, but you have to change your attachment to them. You must release them. And it's like if I was to tell somebody, well, you chose that fear, and they said, no, I didn't. It came upon me unbidden. And I said, well, I think you chose it. And we have an argument about it now. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. They're just, with every time they say no, and every time I prompt them to say no, they're holding on to it more tightly. See? So if I want them to not be fearful, I don't need to go there. I don't need to tell them that they chosen fear unless they're open to it. How am I going to know whether they're open to it or not? The Course in Miracles teaches a life of guidance. You check in with your higher self, with the Holy Spirit, to find out whether that is a truly helpful thing to do. And every time we come in here in the morning and read one of our affirmations that help me to be truly helpful, that's a real important phrase. The Course doesn't say to go out and be helpful and kind in every way to every person you come across. It's not effective. You got to be practical. If it doesn't work, why do it? Not everyone wants. It's not as easy to help other people as you might think. by the way. I think we all learn that eventually. You extend your hand of helpfulness and it gets bitten. You know, well, the dog said, I thought the dog was hungry. He wants your hand. So he bit your hand. Instead, go within and seek guidance first. Is this a way to be truly helpful? And if it feels peaceful for you to extend help, then do so. If it doesn't feel quite right, don't do that, because you're not responsible for the other person's path, and you're not responsible for their salvation or their healing or anything else. Everyone in the world is sick to one degree or another in their mind. I mean, that's what the Course is. We're all insane, but to various degrees. There are degrees of insanity. And you can go really deep into it until you just have no ability to even understand how a being could function like this other being is functioning. They're so insane. They're eating every person. They're a zombie, and they're eating every person. And is that right? Fear the those are zombies, aren't they? The Walking Dead. I don't watch that stuff, but I think they're called zombies.
They feed on brains.
No, they feed on brains. Well,
Sorry.
so thanks for that addition.
It's interesting that you would know that.
Well, it just made me have the thought, which is kind of ridiculous, that we don't eat brains even of animals, do we?
Sure.
Yes, we do. Brains and eggs.
Yeah.
It's a sandwich.
Pig's brains. I believe.
Some people do, yeah.
And what do you call it?
There was a dish where I grew up in North Carolina called brains and eggs.
Brains, and I didn't know.
Yes.
I grew up in Texas. We don't have that there.
We had that in Tennessee too. Yes.
Or if they may have had it, I just wasn't aware of it, you know.
It's in various places.
Okay. Well, I don't know how we got onto zombies. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But at any rate, it's just about how you treat the body. And I haven't yet answered it, why pain and pleasure were programmed into the body. Maybe some of you all remember. It was for a simple reason. It was so you would believe the body is real. I mean, that's really kind of clear. If I never felt pleasure in the body and never felt pain, why would I think it's real? Do you think your car is real? Or why would I think it's part of me? Why would I think it's me? Well, I wouldn't any more than I think my car is part of me. Now, if you kick my car and I felt a pain in my elbow or someplace, every time, I might start thinking, actually, that's part of me too. You see, because every time you beat on it, I feel the discomfort. But that doesn't work that way. It's only your body that sends pain and or pleasure to you. And so and it says pleasure has the same purpose. It's just to teach you that the body is real. So the Course is very serious about the fact that we are deceived up one side and down the other, actually, into thinking that the body is real. And that, of course, that's normal and natural for this experience. But if you want to wake up from this experience, it's very helpful to change your view of the body and not to deny it, just to see it as it is. It is a vehicle for communication and motion. You can talk to people and you can walk over to their house, you know, so it's valuable. But, and it's a learning device. What are we learning? We're learning to heal our minds. And these are, by the way, the only two problems you might have. Isn't that nice? I mean, in the sense of being simple. I'm not giving you a list of 400 bad things here. Just say it's either fear or it's guilt, and neither are real. You don't need to be investing yourself in them. So anytime you're fear to me just doesn't mean like quaking with uncontrolled fear. I'm talking about a concern about your safety or someone else's safety in any circumstances. Your main problem, if a storm is coming at you, is not to survive, in my opinion. It is to not allow fear to enter your mind. That's your main challenge right there. Don't be concerned about survival. you can't be destroyed. That which is perfect is indestructible. Well, the body can be destroyed. Well, I'm not ready for the body to be destroyed. Well, that's really not up to you. We don't generally choose when, well, you can commit suicide, I suppose, of course. But all the religious teachings would encourage us to let that come naturally, I think, rather than saying that, well, you're the one that needs to choose that. The Course actually says that you have indeed chosen the time when you will awaken from this dream of reality. This is not real. This is not the physical is not a part of heaven, and therefore it's not a part of what you are, because that which is perfect in you fits into heaven just as well as God does or anything else does. But bodies don't. There are no bodies in heaven. In other words, heaven is formless. This is form. And we have fallen in love with form. Just thrown our arms around it, kissed it up one side and down the other, and said, I love form. However, there are problems. So when forms start to hurt, then, there are problems. Anytime there is guilt, you have to ask, in this form, that's energy, by the way. Energy, you can't be destroyed. It can't be created either. All it can do is change forms. It can be heat energy, and then it can change into electrical energy or vice versa. There's all different kinds of energy. Well, guilt is a form of energy. It's a bad, I would say it's the energy of feeling bad about yourself, you see. And that is not what it has no foundation. When it says that anger is never justified, an attack has no foundation. It means it has no valid foundation. It has some kind of foundation, but it's just not valid. So when I'm attacking, I have decided that the world is not treated, something out there in the world, some person perhaps or some animal has not treated me right. That's why you attack. You're not treating me right, and I'm going to punish you for it. I'm going to attack. And it's saying that foundation is not correct. It's not true. And it simply comes from guilt. You feel you're not good enough, and therefore you expect to be attacked. Why shouldn't you be? You're not good enough. If the state doesn't attack you, then animals should, or somebody should. If God won't do it directly with lightning bolts, and he doesn't tend to do that, then we have to do it for ourselves. So it starts with guilt, and guilt then generates fear. I mean, if you're not good enough, then you really do need to be punished. There's something basic in us that will accept that idea. We've been taught it ever since we were born. You're not good enough, go to your room. You're not good enough, you're going to get a spanking. Let me take this privilege away from you. When we were children, we experienced all that because parents have to control children somehow. And they generally use guilt and fear to do that. But not always, but it usually seems like to me that it starts there. Now so your job is to allow Spirit to heal your mind of these two problems. There's things you can do. You can affirm that you're perfect, that you are good enough. But we're not talking, when we say perfect, we're not talking about actions. Your actions are not perfect. We're not talking about your personality. How many times you smile or frown or whatever. I can't talk and spell at the same time. So anyway, that may not be spelled right.
I can't spell anyway.
Well, it gets less. Yeah, that ability gets less and less. When we're talking about perfect, I'm not going to argue with you and try to convince you that your actions are always perfect or your personality is perfect, because I don't know what that even means. All I know is whether I happen to like your personality or like the kind of actions you do. But what is perfect is soul or spirit. Use the word that you want. It's the part that It's what God created. The action, you choose to do whatever actions you want to do, and you have developed somehow your personality. Yeah.
So is that the formless?
Yes, this is formless. Thank you. We get into form. Forms have, it's difficult for forms to be perfect. You thought about that? In fact, I don't know how even to conjure that idea up. What's a perfect form? Beats me.
They all change, don't they?
Yeah,
They all
forms.
change.
Yeah, they
The
form.
end of state of change.
Right. And so if it started out perfect, it probably is the next day because the limb is broken off the tree. So the wind blew and the limb fell. And so the tree's not perfect anymore. It's lost a limb, if you wanted to think of it that way. But they're always changing. Spirit doesn't change. It's formless. You don't have the opportunity to be bad. You only have the opportunity to think you are. And you can change the way you think. So what about the way I feel? Well, the Course, that's a little trickier thing. The Course tends to emphasize that how you feel comes from how you think. And there's a lot of truth in there. There's more truth in that. Maybe if you want to say it's completely true, that's fine with me. But in our experience, sometimes it seems like there are feelings that are present no matter what I think. We all, well, in the middle of an anger attack, if somebody said, well, you're really perfect, get out of my face. You know, that might not carry much weight, in other words. So anger, I mean, emotions can, particularly for a while, can rear up and wash away whatever thoughts you might have. But that's temporary, that your emotions subside. You can, get to a calmer state of mind and look at what's going on here. And if you don't have guilt, you're not going to have fear. But what the mind tends to do with guilt is this. There are three things you can do with guilt. So here's the guilt, G. It's buried in your mind. It involves every time somebody has said to you that you're not good enough, you heard it and you stored it, kind of like. But it's not there consciously, but the energy's there. And what can you do with that? You can, well, first, you can project it out towards other people. This is and the way you do that, well, that's anger. You get mad at somebody and you feel good about being angry at them because you think you're getting rid of some of your guilt. And what the Course says, the guilt has a rubber band attached to it. It's like a ball. You throw it at somebody, just before it gets to them, it pops back and it just is right back there again. In fact, you probably feel a little bit more guilty because you tried to attack them. See? So this is so common that it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just all over the place. And like in the news, no one ever tells you this, ever. Oh, you're angry? That just means you have guilt and you're trying to get rid of it by projecting out. But let me tell you, it doesn't work. You're not bad for doing it. It's just you're doing something that doesn't work. That's all. It is never justified. That's what it means. It doesn't justify there doesn't mean, well, you're wrong if you got angry. It's not what it's talking about. It means that it doesn't make sense and it doesn't work. So here's your attack and your anger. And you feel like the reason it feels good is, I really believe this 100%, that it feels good because at some level in your mind, you think you're getting rid of your guilt. In other words, momentarily, you see, I think I'm a bad person, okay? I see you and I think you're even worse. So I project my guilt onto you and tell you how bad you are, and momentarily I feel better. But just momentarily. It's not based on truth. It's not justified. After that, you actually feel worse because you just done one other bad thing. You attack the guy or the gal or whatever. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is you can send it into the body. And when you send guilt into the energy into the body, it hurts. Sure does. And it hurts here, there, yonder, whatever. Now, something I really like about the Course is it says there is no need for pretense. All of your minds are sick, every darn one of them. It can have degrees, but no matter. And it all comes from here and here. And so everybody's going to be doing both of these things to some varying degree. And psychologists could tell you this stuff probably. But the course says there's one other thing you can do. Well, psychologists might take this too. I don't know. But you don't really want to do that. I mean, it's not fun. It doesn't make for good life. What you want to do is the third thing, and that is release. You need to release the guilt. And that means to come to an understanding that it's not founded or justified because you're perfect. Your spirit is perfect. I don't care about this other stuff. So my body's not perfect. Like who? So what? The mirror tells you that day in and day out. But you need to get to the place you don't care that much. Doesn't mean you don't need to comb your hair. That helps. But you don't get to be perfect just because you comb your hair. The body will never be perfect. The personality will never be perfect, no matter how many jokes you learn. Or no matter how well you sing. All of that is like you were saying, Jim. It's changeable. For the first few years, I'm a great singer. Everybody loves me, and then other more talented people displace me a bit, and I'm not loved quite so much. And now I can't even get a job anywhere singing. And it changes. You see, it's not perfect. It goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. We're made for constant up. That's what we're made for. Say, oh, good, I'll go take a drug. That'll do it. Well, actually, that changes too. After you finish the drug, then your body might start hurting in this way or that way. All these side effects, We all know that taking drugs is not a solution that really works. It just sort of will take you to the street corner where you're begging for more money to get another hit. That's not one's idea of being having a wonderful life. So, but you can release this, and the way you do that, the course says, is to ask for help in doing it. I mean, some things you can release yourself, I suppose. I don't know, but there's a 100% effective way of releasing. Your way of releasing may only be 80% or something. I don't know. Because when you're upset about something, that's what brings the guilt to your attention as you get upset. If you had no guilt, you would never get upset about anything. Nothing. Well, your body's about to be blown away. I'm not a body, I'm a spirit. Tell me something interesting. So there would be no basis for being upset if there wasn't fear and guilt. These are the problems, and they're in your mind. And that's why your mind and my mind, everybody's mind, needs to be healed. And so the flip side of this, though, is that not only you need to be aware of this, but it is really important, in my opinion, to have compassion. Because you see, if I really know that well, and you get sick and well, you just got too much fear and guilt, get over it. Well, there's no compassion there. I'm really just attacking you in one way, by the way, basically I'm trying to put you down and make you feel bad about you. Oh, I'm really helpful, aren't I? I'm telling you now you're sick, and I'm telling you it's your fault. Now, when I say it comes from here, I don't mean it's your fault. There's no such thing as fault. It's just a consequence. When I let go of this and it falls to the ground, it's not the fault of this object that it falls. It's just the law of gravity that's pulling it down. That's all. It's just what happens. It's the consequence. So these are the three things. 1, 2, 3. Release, perfect release, really effective release comes from, and it's a really good thing to remember this. The last paragraph in chapter 5 of the text of A Course in Miracles. The last paragraph, chapter 5. If you know nothing else, know that one by heart. And because what it says is this: if it says, anytime you've got a problem, address the Holy Spirit. I want to give you this problem. I want you to wash it out of my mind. And I want to choose again. you must take responsibility, by the way, because the Holy Spirit can do nothing for you as long as you're holding on to the reins of decision, you see, and not letting them go. And if you're not admitting it, that you're responsible for the problem, if you have not decided to let the Holy Spirit deal with it, then he can do nothing about it. And if you insist that you're not responsible, did I say that the right way? When you have a problem, it will be caused by this and this, and therefore it is your responsibility to start getting rid of it. But if you insist that it's the virus, or it's the brick that fell on my head, it's something out there that caused me to not feel good, then whereas really it's in the mind, the Holy Spirit can't help you. He will not override your decision to blame it on external factors. He just doesn't come roaring into your mind, knocking your ideas this way and then say, here's truth. He doesn't do that. He doesn't attack us mentally ever. I almost wish he did, to be simpler life. But he doesn't do that. He has too much respect for it. We would not have the respect for other people, by the way. You know, if you're in the hospital and you need a tube pushed here into your ear, let's say, and you're serious condition, they're probably not going to ask, once you submit to the procedure, they're not going to ask you how they carry it out. They're just going to put the tube in your ear or your throat if they're doing that, whatever they're doing. Well, God is not going to override your choices. So if you want to his help in changing them, you have to take responsibility for your choices. And that's negotiable. It's just not negotiable. So you take the responsibility and say, yes, Holy Spirit, I've chosen wrongly. That doesn't make you a bad person. It just means your mind needs to be healed. And we've already said that. And so the Holy Spirit says this. He says, okay, your wrong decision generally affect not just you, but other people. Maybe not all the way, I don't know. But generally it's going to be affecting other people, if not always. And so think of that as an octopus is the main problem, with lots of arms going out to other people, affecting them. He says, I'm going to go in and cut off all those arms. I'm going to heal all the consequences of your wrong decision. This means at the mental level. It doesn't mean at the physical level. I'm going to heal all of them. If you're mad at somebody, you've got to deal with that anger, pull that anger back in, and realize it has no foundation, and say, no, I'd like to release it instead. I don't want to send it into my body. I want to release it. And the Holy Spirit says, great, but you need my help in this, because it's tentacles of that are in other people's minds. And I will I will pull all those tentacles back in, so they're gone. So this is 100%. If you try to do it by yourself, it's not going to happen. You don't even know the tentacles are there half the time. You might think, I'm mad at this person. So yes, I see a tentacle there, but there might be 4 or 5 other people that are involved that you don't really understand or care about it one way or the other, but they are. So in that releasing, you want a 100% release. Ask for the Holy Spirit, and it will always answer. This is not an insurance policy that works some of the time. This is simply a statement of universal truth and fact. It cannot not work. If it didn't, we need to ring up God on the telephone and say, your system failed. It failed. Fix it. Well, God's systems don't fail. So it is a universal thing. And these are the 3 things that you can do with guilt. And of course, the Course in Miracles wants you to do this one. That's our thing. But compassion comes in when you realize that people believe the false things in their minds. They don't believe they chose fear. They don't believe they have any guilt hiding down there. So instead of looking at them as inferior, if you just knew the truth I knew, you'd do. That's an attack. Compassion is recognizing they have a right to be where they are. I don't care where that is. That they can be this much above a raging beast and one to tear and rip and blow apart. It doesn't make any difference. Compassion is needed. They don't understand what's going on. And that needs to be taken into account. Compassion is a form of love, I suppose. Recognizing the fact that our minds are not healed. You don't attack people because their minds aren't healed. Your mind's not healed either. And it doesn't make a difference if your mind was healed. If it wanted to attack people, suddenly it won't be healed. You just believed in attack. Well, maybe you were healed a second ago, but you're not anymore. You see. These are the only two problems that we have. So anytime your body hurts, say, the body is trying to tell me something. Because we have lots of blocks. We just do not see all the opportunities for judgment that come our way that we actually buy into. It can be subtle. Yes, we're not going to go out and want to kill somebody and put a hit on somebody. That's not where we are. But I'll give them a rude look or something like that. It all matters. And that's why the Course says a murder and a frown's all the same. It's a negative. You don't want negativity in your mind. If you do, you've got to do one of these three things. So please pick this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here with us today. As you know, we like to have a closing thought. Last week, I failed to invite you to stand.
Yes, you did. I noticed that.